Around March of 2014, I started talking to this girl on Tinder. She seemed cool and fun, and after about a week of talking, she suggested we meet up in person. She invited me to this coffee shop and I accepted. However, the day of, she started messaging me saying she had to tell me something. Her pictures on Tinder weren't actually of her, and yes, she was a guy. He claimed he really liked talking to me though and begged me to still meet up with him. Naturally, I declined. I blocked his profile and continued on with life. About a week later, I started talking to another girl. Once again, she seemed cool and fun and we hit it off. She asked me if I spoke to people on Tinder frequently, and rather stupidly I told her about my previous encounter with the man lady. Weeks later, I would realize that this new girl was the same girl as the week before. She asked me if I wanted to meet up and I said sure, as long as it was in a public place. We decided on a cafe and the next day, I sat at the table, waiting. 5, 10, 15 minutes had passed and she was nowhere to be found. I then peered out the window and saw, from across the street, a man staring at me intently. I looked away, waited a few seconds, and looked back. He was still standing there, staring. At this point, I left the cafe, got on my bike, and booked it home. I was definitely a little freaked out, but tried to pull myself together and reasoned that no one could have followed me. I then deleted my Tinder profile, and things were normal for a few weeks. About 3 weeks later, I started getting phone calls. The numbers all showed up as unknown. I picked up the first few times to some guy breathing heavily into the phone. I was already a little freaked out. After about a day, I stopped picking up any call unless it displayed the caller's name. I then started receiving text messages. At first, they were pretty harmless, calls for attention and begging me to meet in person. It then changed to very sexual texts, until eventually the messages became threatening and whoever was messaging me started throwing out my family and friends' names and whereabouts, saying they would get them involved unless I answered. Because they were texting me, I could see a displayed number, but when I called the phone providers, they told me the number couldn't be traced and that it was probably a track phone. Great. I waited about 2 weeks, not responding to the texts, thinking I shouldn't feed the troll, but eventually it became too much. I started getting upwards of 50 texts and phone calls a day. I would wake up to 10 to 20 texts every morning. I then decided to change my number altogether. The texting and calls stopped for a while, but sure enough, it started happening again. I called my phone provider asking if they ever gave out numbers at a user's request, and they said their policy stated that they wouldn't and couldn't unless valid identification was provided. Then one day, I tried logging into my Facebook but was denied. Within a day, friends started to contact me asking what the hell I was doing, saying that they were getting really terrible messages from my account. In particular, one of my girlfriends was receiving messages about her mom who died years ago. I contacted Facebook and explained the situation. They helped me gain access to my account again, at which point I deactivated it for a while. Enough was enough. I decided to contact the FBI, explaining what had been going on for over a month now. They documented everything but told me since I, or any of my relatives and friends, were in no immediate danger, they probably wouldn't be able to do anything. At that point, I felt stuck. I thought about hiring a private investigator or a hacker. I decided against it, however, and just hoped it would fade out if I never answered. I left my Facebook deactivated and ignored any texts and phone calls. I never had any trouble at home, but some of my closest friends received the occasional text as well, which weirded us all out. I hated that they got dragged into it. One day I came home, and things felt very eerie. Door unlocked, windows open, and no one home. A strong breeze running through the apartment. I did a check of the place and found nothing else weird, so I locked everything up and just waited for my roommates to get home. It's been almost 7 months now. The calls and texts have more or less stopped. I'll get an occasional text, but at most one every 2 weeks. At the peak of it, I was receiving almost 100 texts a day. It definitely affected my social and personal life. I became much more weary of the people around me and my surroundings. I just felt like I couldn't really focus on anything until it stopped. Work was difficult, though I tried to maintain my composure as best I could. Everything was just weird. Life was weird. I've since stopped using all forms of dating apps and websites. Things are getting back to normal, and at this point, I just want to put it all behind me. I'm moving at the end of this year, so it'll be nice to have a fresh start in a new place. I'm not going to sit here and say all dating apps are dangerous and no one should use them, but definitely cover your bases. Ask more questions before meeting someone. FaceTime them first, Skype, anything. I was naive about it and I regret it. Be safe. Stick close to your friends and try meeting people in more traditional ways. Weird Tinder stalker? Let's not meet. I've been lurking on the sub for like 2 years, and thanks to the wonders of online dating, I finally have quite the story to share with you. I use Tinder pretty frequently, and it's usually cool, just meeting people, chilling, smoking with them. So I matched with this dude named Charlie, and he seems cool. He's really cute and he plays music, which is really appealing to me, as I also sing and play piano. We talk for a little while and I agree to meet him at his house. Mistake number 1, why did I think it was a good idea to meet a stranger in their home? I don't drive, so I take an Uber over and it's a decent way away, so it's kinda pricey. When he buzzes me into the apartment complex, I got this really creepy vibe, but I shook it off as nerves. I got up to the 3rd floor and he's standing at the door. Things are cool, we're just chilling. We smoked a couple of bowls and we're watching a movie. So, he makes a move on me and I go with it. We end up on the bed and we're obviously engaging in adult activities, when out of nowhere, he wraps his hands around my neck hard. Now, that's all fine and good with me. I mean, I can dig that in the right setting, but alone in a stranger's house, when he didn't even check to see if I was cool with it, is not one of those settings. So I literally can't breathe, and I'm fairly certain I'm turning blue at this point, and he's just relentless. Not only is he asphyxiating me, he's now yelling in my face, "Are you scared?" With this wild look in his eyes, and I'm like, fuck yes, I'm scared. Are you trying to kill me right now? I started to struggle and he was gripping even harder. I'm not even kidding you guys. I seriously thought I was going to die. By some miracle, I wriggled out of his grasp and started screaming. He's yelling at me to calm down and I'm frantically trying to put on my clothes. He grabs my wrists as I'm trying to leave and I use all of my strength to pull away and slam the door. As it was closing, the charming fella bid me adieu with the words, "Fucking cunt." I get home and look in the mirror and I have terrible bruises on my neck. I try to cover it up with makeup, but to no avail. I straight up look like I was almost strangled to death. Then he texts me saying, "I think you need more than one dick." And I'm like, oh really, you want to bring a friend and kill me together, how lovely. Anyway, I blocked him and reported him on Tinder. I wish I could have done more because I seriously think he would have killed me. I've been debating over going to the police, but the bruises are gone and it's a he said she said kind of thing. But I'm really starting to wonder if I should, because the next girl might not be so lucky. Crazy strangler Tinder dude? Let's not meet. I can honestly say that the last few days have been the most fucked up, confusing, and terrifying of my entire life. Apologies in advance for dropping this all here, but I just need to write this down somewhere to try and make sense of everything that's happened. I've spent the past few days with nobody believing me, staring at me like I'm less than nothing. I hope that someone here can see truth in my story. I guess I should just be happy that I'm free to tell this story for the time being. When my parents arrived and posted my bail, I saw salvation in their eyes. My sanity was at least partly restored. But when I frantically tried to explain to them what happened, I soon watched that salvation turn to doubt. God, how could this happen? What the fuck did I do to deserve this? Anyway, the story. I set out on Thursday morning to go and meet up with this girl. Wait a second, let me start from the beginning. I need to give you proper context. A couple weeks ago, I matched with a pretty hot girl on Tinder. Her name was Sarah. She was 23, just a couple years younger than me. And she had grown up in this town just like me. I was certain I had seen her around a few times. She was the kind of person you've been in the presence of a few times, but never properly connected with, if you know what I mean. We started chatting and things were going great. We swapped stories about the town, big events that happened growing up, and laughed about how we'd basically lived the same life, but never actually met each other. She was sweet, made me laugh, and she was very pretty. I was captivated. This went on for about a week. I'd find myself increasingly excited to see her replies to my messages. When my phone buzzed, I hoped it was her, and it usually was, which felt great. I didn't want to hang around and let this opportunity pass. I asked her if she wanted to meet up sometime soon. She eagerly accepted and suggested Thursday, which I was all too happy to agree to. We talked over what we wanted to do, maybe get dinner, see a movie or something, but she worked nights, so it was going to have to be a day date. I think my heart almost stopped completely when she suggested just meeting and hanging out at her apartment. I was prepared to play the long game on this one, but I certainly wasn't complaining that it was shaping up to be more of a sprint to the finish line. She gave me her address, and we laughed about how it was in such a rundown part of town. I playfully hounded her over it, which she laughed off, asking in turn how classy my living arrangements were as a single 20-something working a part-time retail job. She had me there. I don't think I could have brought her here. The place is a dump. Thursday rolled around quickly. I cleaned myself up, put on some of my nicer clothes, and left the house. I felt incredible. I had a spring in my step and a condom in my pocket. If only I could have seen then where this day would go. I might have had the sense to stay home. I rounded the corner to her apartment block and stared up in a grim fascination. This place looked terrible. It was like a caricature of urban decay, a relic of a bygone time that the years had not treated well. I laughed to myself in the relief that she lived on the ground floor. I wasn't going to have to venture into the belly of this beast. I made my way over to her door, apartment 12. I stifled myself, took a deep breath, and knocked on the door. No answer. I double-checked the number and knocked again. Nothing. I walked around to the side window, peered through the bars to see if I could see her inside, but I could barely make out anything. The room looked nearly empty. I tried the door once more, but still no answer. I heard a shuffling inside and the faint sound of a door closing. This must be her. She's coming to let me in now. Still nothing. Curiosity got the better of me and I tried the door, yelling her name as I did. It's unlocked and I let myself in, but nobody replies to my calls. The place is horrendous. A wrecked open space punctuated by a couple of pieces of smashed furniture and trash. Something was wrong here. I should have run. Compelled by my curiosity, I continued to venture through the awful place, calling Sarah's name as I went. I checked the first couple of rooms in the hallway and found nothing, but my heart sank as I walked into what I assume was the kitchen. That's where I saw her. She was laid out on the floor like a rag doll, her bright summer dress standing out in stark contrast against her dank surroundings. My instincts kicked in and I ran over to her in an attempt to help. I cradled her lifeless body in a panic as I tried to work out what the fuck was going on. Her neck was bruised like she'd been strangled, but she was still warm, color fading from her face with each passing moment. I had no idea what to do. I started frantically yelling for help, but there were no replies. I took a deep breath, collected myself, and pulled out my phone to call 911. The second my hand clutched onto my phone, I felt it vibrate in my hand. New Tinder message from Sarah. I opened it without hesitation. I'm so happy you found me. I felt faint. I felt ill. What in the fuck was going on here? Before I had time to wrap my head around any of the myriad fucked up things about this situation, I heard a sound that chilled me to the core. Her phone vibrated in her purse. I pulled it out, hoping that it might offer some answers. There it was on the screen. New Tinder message from Rob. I'm so happy I found you. I couldn't suppress the need to vomit any longer. My body gave in and I collapsed onto the floor. When I pulled myself together, I started to scroll through the Tinder conversation on her phone. It was nearly identical to the one on mine. Nearly. Minor details changed. Roles were reversed in the conversation. On her phone, I asked her to meet me here. Before I even had time to try and figure out what happened or calculate how monumentally fucked I was, the sirens rolled in. Pretty soon, I was cuffed up in the back of a cruiser. Since then, I've been protesting my innocence so hard that I've not even had time to process what happened. I've not slept a wink, and with each passing hour, my pleas for understanding begin to sound more and more like ramblings of a madman. I'm being called for further questioning tomorrow. I'm certain this is where my life ends. Tinder, the app that allows you to swipe between people solely based on their appearance. Young people's heaven, right? What started off as some harmless fun escalated into a complete nightmare. I'd like to say at this point that I was never into dating apps. The whole concept was too weird. After watching episodes of MTV's Catfish, it confirmed my belief that talking to and meeting people online was a bad idea. However, after months of my friends using Tinder, I thought, fuck it, and decided to just download it. What could be the harm of it? My ex had cheated on me a few months prior, so after countless days of mourning the relationship and questioning everything possible that I could have done wrong, I decided to get back into the dating game. After a few days of using the app, I started to get into it. 50 matches and 6 proper conversations with people. To me, that was an achievement. Then I saw Hannah. Her profile was in a league of her own. Her pictures were beyond perfection. Her profile bio talking about her previous experience working in clubs and studying fashion at Northampton College. She was beautiful. I swiped yes, hoping it would match us. It was. I couldn't believe my luck. I wanted to keep it cool and not message her too quickly. After what seemed like a day, I said, "Hey." No reply. I started to panic. Fuck, I must have messed it up, I thought. I went through all the possible ways I could have fucked up with "hey." Should I have said hi, sup? Too late now. An hour passed. My phone vibrated. A Tinder notification from Hannah. "Hey." Success. And we began talking, discussing our hobbies, interests, previous relationships, the lot. After a few days of talking, I felt like I knew this girl inside out. Her parents had separated and she lived with her dad, taking on 2 jobs to support herself and him. She was a Virgo, as was I. It was great. It got to the point where it just felt right to ask, any chance we could meet up at some point? Get a drink or go for some coffee? Sure. My heart raced. I didn't think she would have said yes. We exchanged numbers and continued texting for a while, arranging to meet at a cocktail bar. 8 p.m. that night, I got on the bus and started walking towards the bar, my heart racing and palms beginning to sweat. What if she thought I was ugly? I kept thinking. I approached the entrance of the bar, arranging to meet her before we went in. This is where it got weird. She didn't text me much that day, just short sentences and long amounts of time between responses. I just assumed she was nervous. My phone vibrated. Hannah. "Babe, I just walked past you. You're so much more beautiful in person. I was too nervous to say hi. Please forgive me." I looked up from my phone and scanned the street area surrounding me. Just a few students and some elderly people coming home from the theater. "Where are you? I want to meet you," I texted. No response. I texted again. "You winding me up?" And still nothing. Maybe I got catfished. I mean, this girl couldn't possibly be intimidated by me. She was too attractive to be. My phone bleeped. "Please forgive me." Now, I was getting pretty creeped out. The combination of the darkness and a lack of people on the streets didn't help. I kept looking around to try and see her. Then, out of the corner of my eye, on the other side of the road and further down the street, a silhouette of someone standing, facing me. It was too dark to make out any features of the person. I just noticed a long black jacket with the hood. It couldn't have been her. I slowly reached into my pocket and sent her a blank text, my gaze still firmly on this figure. A phone lit up in its hand. "Fuck this," I thought, and started power walking the other way. Who was it? Another text. "Why are you walking away? Am I not pretty?" That did it for me. I knew I'd been played. I felt like a complete idiot for falling for it. All I could think was getting back home and forgetting this ever happened. Hannah sent me another message. "I am a pretty girl. You will see." That made my skin crawl. I refused to respond to it. All I could picture was some strange woman texting me now. The aura of Hannah was instantly gone. The whole way home I felt like I was being followed. I don't know if it was just my paranoia, or if someone actually was. Either way, I had to get home. I lunged through the front door, locking it and checking all the windows and back doors were locked. I needed to get some sleep. It took me a while to drift off, my mind still replaying that figure standing there. 4 a.m. I awoke to the vibration of my phone, the immediate brightness blurring my vision. As my eyes adjusted to the screen, I looked at the notification. Hannah. My heart froze. I opened the message. It took me a second to process what I was looking at. It was just a picture message from Hannah. My blood went cold. On my screen was a picture of my bedroom from the door. Attached to the photo was Sleeping Beauty. I was facing away from the now opened bedroom door, knowing full well before I went to sleep I had closed it. The light from the hall had illuminated part of my room. I sat up in my bed, almost instantly, head now facing the door. Standing in the doorway in a dirty, ripped, knee-length pink dress was a man. A 5-foot, extremely elderly man wearing a blonde wig and what I could make out to be pink eyeshadow and red lipstick. His eyes were wide and fixated on me. The room was silent, and all I could hear was his heavy breathing. I looked in horror at this standing not 5 meters away from me. I couldn't move. I couldn't speak. I just sat there, on my bed, in complete terror. The man took a step forward so he was in better vision. His salivating mouth formed an abnormally large, cartoon-like smile.
"Don't you think I'm pretty?"
he said in a hoarse voice, his mouth still grinning. Words tried forming in my head, but none of them would come out. I couldn't speak. I couldn't move. My heart was going into overload. Who are you?" I could hear the fear in my voice. I couldn't think properly, my legs limp. The figure just stood there, eyes penetrating my soul. His smile grew larger, saliva dripping down his smudged lipstick.
"I'm Hannah, and I'm a pretty girl."